I'm in the biotechnology industry. I'm sure you guys know, being in Silicon Valley, most people are in the IT computer industry. Probably you have parents in that industry as well. But many of you probably don't realize that being in the Bay Area, actually we're very fortunate that the Bay Area is also the center of the universe of life science or biotechnology. So I want to discuss with you about what is biotechnology, what do we do, what I do as a scientist, and also discuss with you what kind of jobs we have, what kind of people we look for, and also I'll discuss education in general, not about your education, but other people's education. Okay, so try to make this rather informal. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. Okay, so the first thing first, about biotechnology. As I said, Bay Area is also the center of biotechnology industry. Actually, it was started in South San Francisco by a company called Genentech. Genentech, of course, now is one of the biggest players in biotechnology. So basically, in this industry, we try to use biotechnology to discover and develop new medicines. Normally we call drugs. So these are the good drugs, not the drugs you abuse. So actually, there's a joke that one of my friend's daughter in school, at the beginning of each school year, you will fill on the sheet what your parents did, right? So one wrote, "Oh, my father does drugs." And then, of course, that alerted the school. The school had to make a phone call to the family. No, this is good drugs, medical drugs. We discover and develop drugs that really save people's lives. So I know a lot of you probably down the road want to become scientists or doctors or others. Actually, if you do become a doctor, you will appreciate the drugs, the medical drugs we discover and develop for you to use to save patients' lives. So I can give you a few examples about how powerful these drugs nowadays. Many of you probably all of you have heard about HIV and AIDS. Not long ago, of course, to you probably still a long time ago, because you guys are very young. About 15 years ago, for example, if somebody contracted HIV, that's essentially a death sentence. You will develop AIDS and die a miserable death in a few years. Okay, but fortunately, we in the pharmaceutical industry, the biotech industry, developed some really powerful drugs, mostly by a company in Boston City called Gilead. Actually, many of my friends work there. So because of their drugs, so now patients can take one pill a day, and that pill will allow that patient to have an ordinary, normal life. So now that patient will live a pretty much normal life. So HIV and AIDS will no longer be a deadly disease, but it has become a manageable, controllable chronic disease. As long as you take that pill once a day, you will have a good life. So that's one example that what we can do to save patients' lives. So it's a very, very interesting area and a very exciting and a very rewarding career as well, because you know what you work on to develop a drug in the end will save the lives of many, many people. So how did I get here? So I did my college education actually in China, in chemistry, and then I went to Canada for graduate school and I got my PhD in chemistry in there. And then 20 years ago, I moved to the Bay Area to join one of the startup companies. That's what we are really good for in the San Francisco Bay Area. We start new companies to develop new technologies and new medicines and so on. So I've been in that industry for over 20 years. So even if in the future you don't get into life science, you don't become a doctor or nurse or somebody in medicine, actually I really encourage people, high school students and college students, doesn't matter what you want to major in the future. It's always good to take some science classes. Okay, so for example, if you want to become a lawyer or a accountant down the road, the chance is very likely when you work in a company in the Bay Area, you'll be working with scientists or engineers, right? So you have to understand what they talk about. You have to understand what these engineers do. You have to understand their inventions, right? So give you a simple example. If you become a lawyer, even if you, well, there are many types of lawyers. One type of lawyer is so-called intellectual property lawyer, IP lawyer. So basically you look at what kind of patents this company has and what kind of patents their competitors has and so on. So you really have to understand the science and technology in there. So if you are not into science, you're going to have a hard time to do that. Another simple example is if you become just a lawyer defending people who go to court, who get accused in the court. Even in that case, you need to have some basic understanding of science, because nowadays, how many of you have heard about the DNA fingerprinting or DNA sequence? Go ahead, right? So you're probably high school junior, you have learned in biology, and nowadays it's more and more routine for the court to get somebody's blood sample or just something swipe, you take swipe from your mouth and measure the DNA in there. That will can link somebody to the crime scene. That can either help convict somebody or acquit somebody. So if you do not understand about some basic biology, about basic DNA science, you're going to have a hard time, right? And of course, other examples like if you want to become, if you are an environmentalist, you want to defend the environment, of course you have to understand about some basic environmental science and chemistry and so on. So it's always important to learn some basic science, even when you want to major non-science areas. And also, in your daily life. So basically, I always tell my kids that science really helps you how to think. In daily life, there are a lot of things that involve science too, right? So that's pretty much all I want to say about science and life science and biotechnology before I move on to other topics. Any questions so far? Yeah.
I was taking biotechnology this year, and when I do some research on the companies, there are a lot of so-called biotech companies that are actually working on the devices. Does it still count as biotechnology?
Not really. When we say biotechnology, most of the time we're talking about we deal with molecules, chemicals or biological molecules like DNAs and proteins and so on. Medical devices, that's a different area. Normally that's called biomechanical or medical engineering. But that is one area that's very exciting too. So actually, I have a number of friends who are involved in that area, and also I also look for technologies in that area so that I can help licensing technologies to companies in China and so on. So definitely, actually, I'm strongly encouraging my own son, who's a high school senior at the moment, to get into medical devices because he's interested in mechanical engineering. And I say, by designing great devices, you're really helping people too. So that's very, very important. Yeah. Okay, that's a very good question. So now let's move on to the next topic. What kind of people do we look for when we hire? So, of course, in high school, probably to most of you, what really matters is grades, right? So, probably all of you want to get perfect GPA, all A's, and then for SAT you get 20, 200, and so on. Of course, these grades are very important. But eventually, when I get a resume from a college graduate or somebody who has been working in this field already to apply for a job in my department, actually grades is just one of the things I look at. I care less whether you went to Harvard or you went to University of California. I care about how much interest you have in this particular area. You really have to be passionate about the science you're going to get into. So we don't like people who are bookworms, who are nerds. They only study, and get really good grades. Because once you get to the real world, you have to solve problems. Your grades don't help you a lot to solve problems. What people do we like there? We really, like I said, we like people who love what they want to get into. They're passionate. We also love people. These people have to be really good at taking initiatives. A lot of people who studied very hard, got very good grades. Some of these people, they're really good with reading books, following other people's directions, and so on. Of course, when you get your job, it's really important for you to do your job well based on what other people tell you. But on the other hand, what really distinguishes somebody who is a creator or innovator from somebody who is just a follower is whether or not you can take initiatives. Okay? You really have to think outside the box and think about, how can I make this better? If you look at all technologies, it's all about finding out the problems of the technology we have now and try to make it better. Is there a better way to discover these drugs, to design new drugs, or to solve other problems, right? So we always like people who are thinking outside the box, who are taking initiatives, and try to put that into action, and try to take the leadership skills. And also another thing is communication skills. You have to be able to work and talk with a lot of different people, because in most cases, especially in our industry, when we do drug discovery and development, it involves many different types of experts in different departments or even in different companies. You really have to be somebody who is good at interacting with people, working with people. Okay, I think one thing that really impressed me about American education. Now, I went to schools in China until my college. One thing I have learned through observing how my kids went through schools in here is that from the very beginning, from the kindergarten, you guys learn how to work together. Now, if you look at it, these desks, you have clusters of 4 desks together. You're working together as a team, right? So, sometimes my kids come back home and they complain to me that, we're doing a group project. The other people on the team don't work hard. They're lazy. They're not quite smart. It's not fair. I'm doing most of the work, but in the end, we're getting the same grade. That's not fair to me. I said, listen, you should appreciate this as a great opportunity for you, because in the real world, you will be working with a lot of people who are not as smart as you are, who are not as hardworking as you are. But as a leader, it's your job to motivate everybody. It's your job to get everybody to understand the importance of the project and set goals and lead them. And also, it also gives you the opportunity to really demonstrate yourself, show your leadership, and show how good you are, so that the other people will follow you as an example. Okay, so that tells you the importance of working as a team. Okay, so now let's move on to the third topic. I know Gunn High School is one of the best high schools in California. You guys are very fortunate living in this district, studying here. I heard great things about this high school. My kids my son goes to a high school in San Mateo, which is not nearly as good as this high school, but he's also getting very good education here. On the other hand, if you look at across the highway, 101, once you get into East Palo Alto, how many of you have ever been to East Palo Alto? Okay, so probably about half of you. That's just your neighbor, right? Across the highway, and many of you have never been there, right? That's an entirely different world. So in my son's high school, it's more diverse. He gets to work with a lot of some of the unfortunate students. who don't speak, whose family don't speak English, or whose parents never went to college, and so on. So my son Jason really spends a lot of time working with them, and also he goes to a nearby homeless shelter to tutor the unfortunate homeless kids in there. So one thing I learned is recently I was involved in another organization trying to help underprivileged students from underprivileged families to get good students. Because if you look at you guys, probably you are from families that have parents who are professionals, scientists, engineers, lawyers, business people, and so on. You get influence at home all the time about getting good education, about going to good school, or in many cases, Ivy League schools, right? So you never have to worry about the family life, right? You never have to worry about the tuition, right? So you guys are very, very fortunate. But on the other hand, a lot of people are not in that situation. I don't know if you realize that half of the students nowadays in California are from disadvantaged minority families, especially in Southern California. Many of them are from families that don't speak English. Well, we have a teacher who can tell us about that. So many of them, they don't get that kind of influence at home as you guys do, right? So many of them don't end up going to college, either 4-year or 2-year college. To me, as a scientist, I'm greatly concerned about that, because in the future, when I hire people, if half of the students in California are not well educated, that's not good for the society. That's not good for me as a manager to hire people. That's not good for Silicon Valley. That's not good for the economy of California. And then that will negatively impact all of you. So I really want to encourage you guys try to get involved in disadvantaged communities, disadvantaged high schools, and then try to make friends, team up with students in other high schools to show them your example, your role model, right? So you are working very hard. Probably you will get into a very good college. By making friends with them, talking to them, helping them with their homework, that can really influence what they want to do in the future. Actually, I really appreciate kids who are from disadvantaged families or underprivileged families who works extraordinarily hard and go to college and then build a successful career. So sometimes, I look at the gardeners who come to my house to clean my backyard. So one of them has 2 boys. On the weekend, these 2 boys, teenagers, come to clean my backyard. And then I will tell my son, Jason, I said, Jason, look, you are studying here, or you are playing video games. But look at these 2 kids, about your age. They are working under the sun, cutting grass for us, cleaning our garden. Okay, so in the future, if I have a job candidate who comes to me, if he and you have the same grades, went to similar schools, equally qualified, I would pick him for a simple reason. He did not have nearly as much resources as you had, and he had to work much harder with much less resources to achieve what he has done. So that means he's either a lot smarter or he has worked a lot harder. Okay? So I think we all need to learn how to appreciate the students who are from less privileged families and try to help them. Okay? Because that concerns the future of all of you, actually. And you will find that as a very rewarding experience as well. So actually, recently my son Jason told me a few stories. How he made friends with these kind of students and how he benefited from himself. Okay, I think we're running out of time. I want to give a few minutes for questions and discussions. Any questions? So you guys are mostly junior? Do you have seniors or junior?
No, junior and senior.
junior seniors. So for those of you, well, junior seniors, how many of you want to go to college to study science or science-related majors? Okay, about a third. How about others? What do you want to do? You want to get into business? Okay, all right. So for you, if you want to get into business, that's great to start business early. But when you do business, it's also important to take some science courses. Today, before I came here, somebody just called me. He is an investor. He's investing in biotech industry, in medical device industry, and so on. And he has to talk to people like me to help him find interesting products and explain to him how these products work and what their potential is. Okay, because he does not understand. So it's very important for you as a business person to have some basic understanding about science. And most importantly, in that process, you make friends with people who are experts in science. That will benefit you for a business. Any other questions? And how many of you want to be medical doctors? It's good to think early. Lawyers? Engineers? Just one? Really? Okay, 2, 3. Okay, that's good. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay. And for those you who are seniors, just one final word. Don't be obsessed with Ivy League schools. Okay? In California, we have some very good UC schools. Recently, I went to the East Coast to look at some Ivy League schools. They said, "Why are you here? You guys have some great schools in California." Okay? So don't forget about our UC schools. Okay, thank you so much.
Gunn 高中留学生活摄制队立足硅谷，聚焦我们身边的人和事，最鲜活地反映在美国的学习与生活现状。敬请关注、订阅、转发，锁定我们，获取第一手鲜活的留学资讯。